Welcome to Resettled and Rising, where stories inspire change, resilience finds its voice, and every conversation leaves us with something to carry forward. I'm your host, Shodacht, and today we're stepping into a powerful conversation with an incredible guest. Salam Mashal, welcome to my podcast.
Salam Shodokjan. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm honored to have you as my guest. Thanks for being here. Through this podcast, I intend to create a platform for storytelling about the journeys you had to go through to rise above, and I cannot wait to hear about it.
Yeah, let's get started.
How are you doing today? How is life?
Good, usual busy life, just like the rest of us. Everyone's just working and trying to get somewhere.
True, true, I get it. So through our conversation today, we will get to know you more on a deeper level. But I want you to think about a question that I'll come back at the very end of the podcast also. The question is, if someone wrote a book about you, what would the title be? So I want you to think about that throughout the podcast and share that. I know it's a very tricky question because you've had a lot of amazing life journeys that you cannot summarize in maybe a phrase or a word, but let's see.
Oh yeah, I like that question and that's a good one. I will definitely think about it and I can give you a title.
Perfect. So let's start from the beginning. To those of us who don't know you yet, who is Mashal Homayoun? Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, of course. I think I am someone who has spent much of her life learning how to begin again through every challenge, every goodbye, and every new chapter. I never stopped believing that there was something bigger waiting for me on the other side.
Definitely, you've gone through a lot, and I'd love to hear more about everything that you want to share today. So tell us about your background, where from Afghanistan you're from, when did you leave Afghanistan, and where did life take you afterwards?
Yeah, before displacement, um, I lived in Kabul. I had a life in Kabul that felt deeply rooted. I was studying at university, surrounded by family, friends, ambition, and familiarity. On the surface, life looked beautiful. I had comfort and a strong connection to my home, my culture, and my identity. Kabul will always hold a special place in my heart because it was home and it will always be home. And leaving it was one of the hardest things that I have ever experienced. At the same time, life carried many layers of restrictions and uncertainty back home because of the security risks surrounding my family after my father's abduction. We lived very cautiously. Safety was always a concern, and even while attending university, I couldn't freely move through life the way many young people would normally do. But beyond security concerns, being a woman in Afghanistan also came with its own, societal and cultural limitations. There were many things I couldn't do freely, many expectations placed on women, and many invisible boundaries that shape everyday life. So eventually, due to the ongoing threats to my family's safety, we made the painful decision to leave Afghanistan and move to Scotland. Leaving was heartbreaking because I wasn't only leaving my country, I was leaving behind a version of life I deeply loved and the identity I had always known. But over time, I also came to understand something important. While displacement took away my home, familiarity, and comfort, it also gave me freedoms I had never fully experienced before. For the first time, I began discovering what it meant to make my own choices, move through life with fewer restrictions, and slowly become the person I wanted to be on my own terms. That became one of the most transformative parts of my journey. Realizing that even with loss, there can also be freedom, growth, and self-discovery.
Wow, I never thought about it that way, but putting it in that context of you losing your country and your comfort zone, but also finding something that you have never had in your country, it must be very powerful. Thank you for sharing that, and I'm really happy that you're able to look at it through that positive lens. So, where did you go first? I know when I saw your bio, you have moved to different countries, I believe. US is the last stop, I hope. But before US, where were you? Where did you resettle? And why?
Yeah, so initially, like I mentioned, we went to Scotland, we settled in Scotland, and then I lived there for almost 5 years. And then shortly after, I resettled in the US for the first time. And this was a long time ago, and it was in Seattle, actually. And then I was in Seattle for a couple of years. Then I moved to Virginia afterwards. And in between those transitions, there were times that I have, went back to Scotland, stayed with my family, tried to begin again. And I have been to Kabul multiple times and have lived there a couple of times for a while. So it's been constant moving in between. The last decade of my life that I remember, I've always been here and there. And yeah, and like you said, currently I am in the US.
Wow, I didn't know that you were in Seattle. That's amazing. How did you like Seattle?
I honestly didn't have a lot of people in Seattle, so I felt quite lonely. Plus, it was combination of the weather and loneliness and just overall life, I had to leave Seattle, but it was okay, not my favorite. Nothing, no hate against Seattle people. It's just a personal preference, but yeah.
I see. Yeah. Going back to what you said, you were lonely. You shared that you were settled in Scotland, then you came to the US. And so tell me, what were some of the initial challenges you faced when you arrived in those countries?
Um, Adjusting was emotionally overwhelming. I struggled with displacement, grief, and the loss of everything familiar. My home, my education path, my sense of belonging, and the life I thought I would have. Moving to Scotland meant rebuilding from scratch, while internally grieving Kabul and everything I had left behind. And then later moving again to the US brought another cycle of starting over. And one of the hardest parts was constantly rebuilding while never fully feeling settled anywhere. My life became a constant cycle of departures and rebuilding, from Kabul to Scotland, from Scotland to the US, from one city to another, and sometimes even back again. It often felt like every time I had finally started rebuilding, life would ask me to begin from zero once more. And I think that constant instability deeply shaped me emotionally. Even years later, I still feel displacement very deeply. And one thing I rarely talk about is that ever since I began living on my own, I have constantly had recurring dreams in many different versions. And in those dreams, I am with my family, and it is the day that I have to leave them again and return to the US alone. I'm saying goodbye, they're staying behind, and I'm leaving once again. Then I return to this dark apartment by myself, and I can physically feel the pain and the loneliness and the heaviness of leaving home all over again. It feels incredibly real every time. And what is interesting is that I only experience these dreams when I'm alone here, never when I'm actually with my family. So I think years of living through departures, make goodbye something I feel very deeply. But despite how difficult that journey has been emotionally, I also believe Those experiences shaped my resilience, my adaptability, and understanding of what it truly means to rebuild yourself again and again.
Wow. That's amazing. That's very inspiring. I hear you mention about emotional toll everything has had on you, and the dreams, and also the loneliness. Tell me, what was the turning point or a defining moment in your life when you realized that despite all these odds or emotional toll or the loneliness, you could still succeed?
Yeah, for a long time, I was very discreet about this chapter of my life because I never wanted it to be about blame, judgment, or anyone else's reputation. But today, I want to share it because I hope it can inspire someone who may be afraid, uncertain, or trapped in their own circumstances. Um, One of the most defining turning points in my life was making the deeply personal decision to leave my marriage and begin again. In my culture, divorce can carry immense stigma, especially for women, and it is often surrounded by silence, shame, and a lot of misunderstanding. For me, this decision was not about encouraging people to give up easily, or nor do I believe every difficult chapter should end the same way. Every story is deeply personal, but in my case, there came a point where I had to choose myself, my healing, and my future. This was one of the hardest battles I've ever had to face, emotionally, mentally, culturally, and personally, and one of the greatest battles I have survived. It broke me in many ways, but it also rebuilt me because walking away meant facing fear, societal expectations, a lot of uncertainty, and starting over from nothing. But it also became the moment I reclaimed myself. And I couldn't have done that without my family's support, and I'm deeply grateful for them. Like I said, for years, I kept this part of my journey hidden, but I don't want to hide it anymore because it is part of my identity, my resilience, and my growth. And I want anyone listening to know that there's always hope, that it's never too late to choose yourself, and that there's no shame in surviving the hardest battle of your life and coming out of it alive. And another moment that deeply shaped me happened shortly after I moved into a new apartment, which is my current apartment, completely on my own. After spending several months back in Scotland with my family while trying to rebuild my life yet again, I eventually had to return to the US alone and start over once more. Um, it was New Year's Eve, and I remember being surrounded by boxes, by silence and uncertainty again, and emotional heartbreak, while also preparing to begin a new job the following week. I still remember sitting alone that night while fireworks were going off outside and just thinking to myself, what is happening to my life right now? Like, who am I? Where do I even begin from here? It felt like the ground had completely disappeared beneath me, like life had suddenly swept everything out from under me, and I was left trying to understand my place in the middle of all that uncertainty and pain. During that time, I was emotionally and physically exhausted to the point where even basic things like, sleeping, eating, or getting through the day felt difficult. But despite how broken and lost I felt internally, I still forced myself to get up every morning, unpack boxes, settle into a new apartment, and prepare for a new job and another new beginning. At that moment, this apartment felt very from what home was supposed to feel like. Uh, it felt lonely, heavy, and unfamiliar, but little by little, day by day, I rebuilt my life inside these walls. And in many ways, that chapter shaped the person I am today. Looking back now, I realize that period forced me to confront myself, my fears, and my pain, and ultimately my strength. Even though some pain never fully leaves you, I am proud that I survived that version of my life and found the courage to rebuild once again.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Honestly, thanks for being here, being that vulnerable, and sharing your journey. Looking at you, like I didn't know you personally before this, so I was not aware of this story. But I am so glad that this platform will share similar stories of people who we see every day through our social media, but we're not very aware of their life behind those posts or stories. We just don't know their journeys and their struggles that they've gone through. And I'm so proud of you for not giving up on yourself, for having the courage to start over again, and for rebuilding your life. That's an amazing and inspiring story, really.
Yeah, thank you.
How long has it been since you have been living alone in Virginia, and how do you like this autonomy of having your own place, even though it might be lonely at times? It might be, as you mentioned previously, dark with the boxes at the beginning. How do you like this new life for yourself?
Um, Again, is not black and white. Life is always gray. And for me, there are moments that I feel like I'm winning, and then there are moments that feels very lonely. Um, but overall, it was a path that I chose for myself. And every day as I am living, as I am, stepping ahead into this life that I'm trying to build for myself and going after my dreams, I know that the decision that I made was the right one for me and for my future. And like I said, of course, it comes with many challenges, but um, this is a path that I chose for myself. And I couldn't be happier to be able to have this autonomy to go after my dreams and the life that I've always dreamt about, but somehow never had the time to actually, start anything because I was always trying to survive. I was always trying to get from one place to another and never belonging anywhere.
Wow, yeah, true. I'm happy that you're happy and that rebuilding your life after the struggles. Of course, life is never like black and white. There are always gray areas. There are always ups and downs. But what makes life worth living is the experiences that we make or get along the way. And I'm sure those experiences, as you mentioned, have shaped who you have become today, and we're so proud. So take us back to your professional journey, arriving in Scotland and in the US. How did you navigate through your career or your educational path? If you've had the opportunity to go to the college here in the US or previously in Afghanistan or in Scotland, tell us all about that.
My professional journey has been one of constant reinvention. After leaving Afghanistan, I continued my education, adapted to new systems, and eventually entered the workforce in Scotland. Later, moving to the US, I had to rebuild yet again, finding work, creating stability, and learning how to survive independently while navigating major personal challenges at the same time. My journey has not been linear. It involved setbacks, uncertainty, job loss, rebuilding, and repeatedly starting over in unfamiliar places. But each chapter strengthened my adaptability and determination. Alongside rebuilding my own life, I also developed experience working in nonprofit spaces and social services, supporting immigrant and refugee communities. Coming from a background in business and management and community focused work gave me a deeper understanding of both the challenges and resilience within displaced communities. And that experience has shaped the way I connect with and support others today. I want to emphasize that I am still at the very beginning of my current journey as a makeup artist and a content creator. I'm still learning, growing, and building myself from the ground up. Um, I do not share my dreams from a place of having made it already. I share them from the courage of beginning. And I hope people listening understand that you don't need to have everything figured out before taking the first step towards the life you want.
True, true. You're right. Starting your own business or brand after or despite everything you're going through is a major um, proud moment. And take me back to your makeup journey, makeup artist journey. I know you have got some social media platforms that you post constantly, and that's how I was drawn to your work and to your branding. And I wanted to focus more at this point on that aspect of your life. How did you end up becoming a makeup artist and putting yourself out there on a public eye?
Yeah, becoming a makeup artist has been a dream of mine for many years. But somehow life always happened, and I never truly gave myself the opportunity to fully chase that dream. Survival, rebuilding, displacement, responsibilities, and difficult life chapters always often took over. When I first started posting publicly as a content creator, it was honestly very difficult. It came with a lot of fear, self doubt, judgment, and the fear of being seen. But I continued, persisted, and slowly realized that if I kept waiting for the perfect moment, I would never begin. At some point, after years of simply surviving and rebuilding, I remember sitting with myself one day and realizing that it was finally time to truly go after my dreams instead of only dreaming about them. When I decided to begin building my brand, I thought deeply about the name, the identity, the colors, and the feeling I wanted people to experience through that. I designed the logo, the branding, and overall vision myself because I wanted it to feel deeply personal and intentional. I didn't want it to feel ordinary to me. I wanted it to feel elevated, luxurious, and meaningful. I dreamed so big that I would imagine one day seeing my brand sitting on shelves besides brands like Huda Beauty and Rare Beauty. And honestly, I think sometimes you have to believe in your dreams almost irrationally before your reality gives you evidence for them. If I hadn't allowed myself to dream that big, I probably would never have had the courage to start in the first place. I've always been someone who dreams very big, sometimes so big that people might even call it unrealistic. But honestly, those dreams are what kept me going through some of the hardest chapters of my life. Even when my reality looked uncertain, I always believed deep down that I was meant to create something meaningful and inspire others through my journey. I truly believe that sometimes you have to believe in your future before your reality gives you evidence for it. My circumstances changed many times, but the size of my dreams never did. And now, for the first time, I feel like I'm finally stepping into those dreams and building something that belongs to me.
I see that for you and go girl. I support that fully because I totally resonate with what you're saying. When I planned to start my podcast, I was very energetic at the beginning. I had this big goals and ideas and the dreams that you're saying, everything was like, okay, I'm getting this, I'm doing this. But then reality hit, and the overthinking phase that we all face at the stages of building a brand, you want everything to be perfect. Because for me, I always thought, if it's not perfect, I'm not putting it out there, because what if people pick on the things that I will share? What if it will be taken out of context? What if this and that? All the overthinking. and the perfectionism idea, it always kept me behind, and I procrastinated months and months of my life, and didn't act upon it. So to now starting it and seeing that, wow, it is an easy process if you actually do the work,
Yeah.
to build something is to put the effort and the time to do the thing, and then it all comes together at one point, and you building your logo and everything that was meaningful for you is actually what is important in building a brand for yourself. So I hope that, and I see your social media is growing, and I'm so happy, and I hope one day I'll see you next to Huda Beauty and Rare Beauty. And I know I can see that day, because when you have big dreams for yourself, you eventually reach them by working towards them. And I am looking forward to that day. So, you mentioned about something along the lines that as a refugee, you have rebuilt your life again and again. Also, professionally, you have had some obstacles. Take us through those obstacles, those barriers that you faced in your professional life as a refugee whose name has a refugee title next to it.
The biggest obstacles were instability, repeated displacement, emotional trauma, and constantly having to restart in unfamiliar environments. Every move required rebuilding confidence, financial stability, new support systems, and a sense of identity from zero. I also face internal battles like self doubt, loneliness, heartbreak, uncertainty, and trying to balance survival with ambition. I overcame these challenges by refusing to stop. Even during the moments where life felt overwhelming, adaptability became one of the greatest strengths I developed through these experiences. I hope people understand that refugees are not defined only by displacement or their struggle, that behind every refugee or displaced person is an entire world of experiences, dreams, grief, resilience, sacrifice, and untold stories that others may never fully see.
Exactly. And most of us, as you mentioned, are dealing with self doubt, coming to a different country, trying to rebuild your life again from zero. You always compare yourself to the local people who have lived their whole life in this country and have gotten all the opportunities that they've had. And they weren't forced to leave their country to start over again, and then you see that I am not good enough. You think that to yourself, because that is what society would give you the feeling of. You are not good enough. You start self-doubting. You start believing that uh, b- imposter syndrome. And so we've all had those days. I've personally had that. I've gone through a lot of mental health um, problems previously. But what would your advice be to those who are in these similar situations of self-doubting, even though they've had these immense experiences in their life of rebuilding over and over again in different countries, but they're still thinking that they're maybe less than others who have been here in their community. So, what do you think? What advice can you give those people in those situations?
I would tell them that beginning again does not mean your story is over. Displacement can take away familiarity, your comfort, and stability, but it doesn't erase your potential or your future. I would just say be patient with yourself during the rebuilding process because healing and reinvention take time. And most importantly, do not allow your current circumstances to define the size of your dreams.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing that. You mentioned something about the support systems, and previously also you said your family has been the biggest supporter for you. So I know you're here alone, but what has been, apart from your family, what her or who has been the most important source of your support for rebuilding your life again, whether it's emotionally, socially, or professionally?
Yeah, my family again has been one of the greatest sources of support throughout my journey, especially during some of the most difficult chapters of my life. Their emotional support gave me strength during moments where I felt completely lost. But beyond that, my faith has also carried me through more than words can explain. There were moments where all I had was prayer, hope, and the belief that Allah would guide me through what I couldn't yet understand. During times of uncertainty, heartbreak, immense loneliness, and rebuilding, faith became my anchor. I genuinely believe that everything I have survived and every new beginning I have been given has happened through Allah's grace. So ultimately, my faith and my family. That's a strong combination.
Perfect. That's amazing. Um, have you had the opportunity to make friends or hang out and with Afghan diaspora in Virginia? I know a lot of our Afghans, majority of them are located in Virginia. How has their support or their existence there helped you in rebuilding your life?
I was fortunate to encounter people throughout different stages of my life who showed kindness, support, and encouragement during moments where I needed the most. And those moments of support can make an enormous difference for someone rebuilding their life. And I've had friends closer to me than family who has been through with me in those journeys. And people who I will never stop appreciating their kindness and I will never forget their kindness. And, kindness goes a long way. And I'm really grateful that I've had the opportunity to be in my own community and have people around me that fully support me and can relate to my story and have also been, displaced. And that sense of belonging means so much because you know that you're not alone in this and you have so many people around you that they can relate to you and you can relate to them.
True. Finding those people is very precious, and a new community that you're resettling and being able to rely on those people and call them family, that's great. And I'm so happy that you have got friends like that. And that's amazing. Okay, now tell me, what qualities or skills have you developed over time that have helped you navigate the challenges of displacement and to succeed in your new environment that you're living in right now?
Adaptability, emotional endurance, courage, and resilience are qualities I developed through these experiences. I learned how to rebuild under pressure, survive uncertainty, and continue moving forward even when life felt unstable. I also learned the importance of self belief because there were many moments where believing in my future was the only thing that kept me going. My experience has completely reshaped my understanding of resilience. For most of my life, people have labeled me as strong. Family, friends, and even strangers would often say, "You're strong, you can handle it." And while I am strong, what people often do not see is what it actually costs to be strong. They do not see the sleepless nights, they don't see the loneliness or the emotional weight that strength often requires. And the strength, the skill, is not something I necessarily chose. It was something life demanded of me. If I had the choice between being strong or simply being happy, I would choose happiness. But resilience taught me that even when life gives you no other option, you keep going. My resilience was not only emotional, but spiritual as well. Um, Faith, prayer, and trusting Allah carried me through many chapters where I felt lost or uncertain. Strength does not mean never struggling, it means continuing despite the struggle.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. In what ways do you hope to inspire others? And you hope that what things from this conversation would people take away from your story? And how do you think it will impact the refugees and how they're perceived today in the society?
I hope my story reminds people that even when life changes completely and takes you somewhere you never imagined, you are still capable of rebuilding yourself. I never thought that one day this would be my life or that I would go through the experiences I did. If someone had told the younger version of me everything I would survive, I probably would not have believed them. But through the years, with every challenge, every displacement, and new beginning, I discovered strengths within myself that I didn't even know existed. Those strengths revealed themselves little by little through every difficult chapter I faced. There have been days where simply getting out of bed felt like a war within myself. And there have also been days where I felt capable of conquering the world and moving mountains. I think both can exist at the same time because we're human, and a strength does not mean never struggling. It means continuing despite the struggle. I also want people to understand that what I have shared today is only a fraction of my journey. There are still many deeply personal experiences and battles that I have not shared and probably never will. What I shared today is simply a glimpse into some of the challenges that shaped me.
Totally agree. And I hope one day we'll have a deeper conversation to understand other personal experiences of you that you might want to share. So, hoping for another episode soon.
Yeah, I just hope to use my, voice, creativity, and experiences to create a visibility, representation, and empowerment, especially for women and displaced individuals, navigating reinvention and identity. And I want my work to be more than beauty or content. I want it to be a source of inspiration, honesty, and encouragement for people who may feel unseen, or lost, or afraid to begin again.
I totally agree. Hopefully, people will find out something useful that they can use to incorporate in their life from your advices and from everything that you have said. So, thank you so much. This brings me to my very last question that I asked at the beginning. If someone wrote a book about you, what would the title be and why?
If someone wrote a book about my life, I think I would call it Two Suitcases and a Thousand Goodbyes. So much of my life has been lived through suitcases and goodbyes. Leaving Kabul, leaving Scotland, leaving relationships, moving across states, countries, homes, and versions of myself. It sometimes feel like my life has been a constant cycle of packing up, starting over, and rebuilding from nothing. I think that's also why goodbyes affect me so deeply. After spending so many years constantly leaving places, departures have always stayed very emotional for me. Traveling airports and saying goodbye often carry a heaviness that many people may not immediately see, because for me, they always have symbolized another ending, another separation, or another new beginning. And that is what I want others to understand, that sometimes life forces you to discover parts of yourself you never knew were there. I want people to know that their future can become bigger than the pain they survived. No matter how many times life forces you to start over, your story does not end there. But beyond all the goodbyes, I think the deeper meaning behind the title is about survival, reinvention, and learning that home is not always a place. After spending so many years searching for home everywhere else, I finally realized I had to learn how to become my own home and eventually became my own home.
Wow. I am amazed by that book title and the description behind the meaning of it. It's beautiful. Two suitcases and thousand goodbyes. That's amazing. Thank you so much, Mashal, for being here, being with us, sharing your journey, sharing your life experiences, being vulnerable, and telling us things that you have never talked before. I feel very honored to have had you here with us and to be able to put your story through my platform and to share your voice with the world and the courage that you've gone through. So, thanks a lot. I hope you had a good time with me and that you enjoyed the conversation as well as I did.
Absolutely. The honor is mine. And thank you so much for having me once again. I really hope that, people listening can take away at least something from this episode of what I shared. Like I said, a glimpse of my life. And thank you so much for this space that you provided to give us the opportunity to share our experiences with the rest of the world.
Absolutely. I love listening to what you said and looking forward to hearing more in person, hopefully one day. Have a good rest of your day and life, and hope to have a talk soon again.
Thank you.